We recently got the Dynasty Warriors Origins demo on Steam, along with its release date, which is already in January. After playing through the demo multiple times and getting a feel for the new mechanics, and also watching some of the developer interviews, I am excited to share my thoughts on how the game feels and plays like, especially compared to previous titles in the series. Let's start with the story. This time we are stepping into the shoes of a nameless wanderer with amnesia, instead of one of the classic main story characters. I think this is a bold and refreshing choice, especially for newcomers, as the story unfolds to him as an outsider, just like it does to the player. For someone like me, who has played a lot of Dynasty Warriors titles, this shift is a welcome change. After years of the same formula and replaying the same missions with slight changes, it felt really stale. During the campaign, you can align yourself with one of the 3 different factions at some point. This might work similarly to the separate campaigns in the past games, where once you have chosen a faction, you will play the campaign from that point on. From the developer interviews, we know that the story will only focus on the first half of the Three Kingdoms saga, ending in the Battle of Chibi. The open world from Dynasty Warriors 9 is also gone. Instead, we now have an overworld map, where you can interact with NPCs and towns in between battles. I'm really curious to see how this plays out and what kind of side content might be included. Let's now talk about the gameplay. We are back to a mission-based structure, with maps featuring clear tactics and objectives. But the standout feature this time is the ability to control your own army, or at least parts of it, during battles. While similar mechanics have appeared in Musou titles, like the Empire series, they never felt fully fleshed out. That has definitely changed here. The army mechanics feel impactful, and the decisions you make can significantly influence the outcome of a battle. This is especially important since the overall difficulty has been cranked up quite a bit, making smart use of these features essential. Before each battle, you can equip up to 3 army actions. In the demo, we got to try out charge, encirclement, and firing a volley of arrows. They feel meaningful, since you can cause strategic openings for yourself instead of running into a wall of enemies. And there are even more options hinted at in the previews. Also, before starting a mission, you get to customize your loadout. You can equip 1 weapon at a time. So unfortunately, no weapon switch combos like in Dynasty Warriors 8. The good news, you can swap weapons mid-mission if needed. There will be only 9 weapon types in total, which might disappoint players who loved the dozens of options in previous games. It seems also that weapons now focus on more generic stats, rather than sockets like we are used to. I'm curious if we still will see elemental effects, or if stuff like wind or slay make a return. There is also a gem slot, but it's not like the weapon sockets from past games. These gems provide passive bonuses, like increased attack range, damage boost, or improved healing. Next, we have battle arts. You can equip up to 4 of them. They are similar to the ultimate skills from Samurai Warriors 5 or the trigger attacks from Dynasty Warriors 9. However, unlike the trigger attacks, the battle arts are much more balanced. You cannot spam them endlessly, since they require a resource to activate. And not all battle arts are offensive either. For example, Palm Strike and Mist Walk are more utility focused. Plus, the arts change depending on the weapon type you are using, adding more variety to your playstyle. Next, we have the accessories. In the demo, they feel a bit like extra gems, offering similar passive benefits. I really wonder what unique effects higher rarity accessories might have, because they seem kinda boring. Horses are of course also back, and can now be summoned quickly with the left stick button. And I also have to say, it feels way smoother to use than in most Musou titles. Lastly, we have a reworked version of portable items from Dynasty Warriors 9. These let you heal or boost your power on demand, but you cannot carry an absurd number anymore, thankfully. That was a big issue with balance in the last game. Before starting a battle, you can also choose a companion or go solo. Picking a companion adds unique interactions, such as shared Musou attacks, or even taking control of them to unleash destruction on the battlefield. Plus, your starting position on the map will change depending on who you bring along. If I had to sum it up, the combat feels like Dynasty Warriors 9, but much more polished and balanced. Parrying and blocking are finally well implemented, making the gameplay feel more interactive, almost like they've taken notes from Molong. Now, if you don't parry, block, or evade attacks from enemy officers, you can actually die, so it's no longer just about mindless button mashing. Officers, and even regular soldiers, also act more aggressively, depending on the difficulty and morale. So finally the foot soldiers don't just stand around like lifeless dummies. Also, if you parry on time, you can break an enemy's fortitude. Once it's fully depleted, they are left vulnerable to a barrage of attacks or even a finishing move, which you can execute with the Y button. The battle arts I mentioned earlier are visually impressive and add a layer of strategy, since they are a great way to break fortitude, but using them at the wrong time can leave you open to heavy officer damage. They require bravery to use, which you earn by attacking enemies or stuff like landing perfect evades. The weapon combos are also back. In Dynasty Warriors 9, the iconic XY combos were completely absent, but they are back now. Depending on your weapon proficiency, you will have access to these combos again. In the demo, they are limited to the general sword, the starting weapon. But it looks like they will be available for all weapons in the full release, once you increase their proficiency and the skill trees. Another standout new mechanic is the rewind button. If you fail to protect an officer or die mid-mission, you can jump back to a save point instead of replaying the entire mission. Duels are also making a return. First introduced in Dynasty Warriors 4, officers can now challenge you to one-on-one battles again. So what are my thoughts on the game? The whole core game loop got a complete overhaul. It's a true reset for the series. With modern hardware, there are more enemies on the screen than ever, and it runs smoothly. Enemies also behave more dynamically, and the overall gameplay is much more engaging. So for me, the two most important problem points have been addressed or solved, which was the too simple officer combat and the way too passive acting foot soldiers. I also really like the addition of tactical decisions, like commanding your army on the fly. It really brings a strategic element to the battles that was sorely missing before. While playing as an unknown warrior instead of a major historical figure feels a bit odd at first, it does allow the story to be told from a fresh perspective. Also, the limited weapon choices and the lack of gem socketing mechanics are significant departures from earlier titles. But if you know what to expect, this is shaping up to be an amazing Musou experience. and a solid foundation for the next generation of warrior games. I'm genuinely excited to see what's next for the franchise. I hope the game does well, so we can see more titles in the future. And if you haven't already, I highly recommend checking out the demo to see how far they've come. In the past, it felt like these games were just rehashes of the same formula, but this one proves that they are capable of delivering something much deeper than a mindless button masher. It's now a true 1 vs 1000 war experience.